New York, New York! What is that? Oh, that's nice. It's not often that a video game series gets a fourth installment, especially one with a track record like Pikmin. The inconsistent sales between mainline entries made it difficult to justify it taking priority in Nintendo's slate of releases, and it hasn't for a very long time. It doesn't help that the first 3 titles were released on 2 of the worst selling Nintendo systems, but nevertheless, Pikmin was kept alive by a small yet devoted following.
I said with mustard. Mustard!
It's a miracle one, let alone 4 of these exist. And now they're all available on Nintendo's best-selling system, giving the series an opportunity to reach a much larger audience than ever before. In a recent interview, series producer Shigeru Miyamoto expressed disappointment with the low sales, citing the difficulty as a potential turnoff to new players. He's been a strong proponent for the series, and had his excitement dwindle after each game's poor sales performance, I don't think we'd have gotten a 4th installment. In that same interview, he goes on to say the main challenge with creating a 4th title is tailoring an experience that is both accessible to new players and satisfies longtime fans. But there's a split consensus amongst the latter group. Either you enjoy Pikmin 1's immediate challenge of collecting scattered ship parts within a strict 30-day time limit, or you appreciate the sequel's much broader approach, allowing players to pick and choose challenges at their leisure, free of any time constraints. Pikmin 3 chose the path of the first game, and its re-release on Switch as of right now is the highest selling installment in the series. This was likely many people's introduction to the franchise. It took a few ideas from Pikmin 2, but not nearly enough for some fans, and the absence of multi-level caves is a clear example of the development team favoring the time management over the type management aspect found in the sequel. As a result, the 3rd title was the easiest entry point for new players, but lacked the challenge and depth some fans would have liked to see. This all set the stage for Pikmin 4 to bridge the gap between Pikmin 1 and 2 fans, while simultaneously being easy enough for new players to get into. Nintendo doesn't have a solid track record fulfilling this type of demand, and a lot was riding on this game to succeed. If it failed to reach a larger audience on Switch, then the series might go away like some other IPs in their roster. These games have always been a great technical showcase for the hardware it runs on, and this time is no different. The areas you explore have been expanded to a far greater extent than any previous title. As you survey the land, you'll notice there are multiple routes at any given direction, encouraging players to explore at their discretion. Previous titles had a more linear design, generally guiding players to sections where they're given some amount of freedom. The open-ended nature of Pikmin 4 allows players to truly feel like they're exploring an alien planet, with the only direction being their intuition. If Zelda was inspired by Miyamoto's childhood, exploring what was beyond his rural backyard, then Pikmin's origins can be traced back to observations he's made while tending to his garden and seeing a group of ants working together. This vision hasn't been fully realized until now, with the inclusion of maps that are in close proximity to the human world, and in one instance, taking place inside of a house. It feels like a late-stage release in a console's lifespan because it pushes the hardware to its absolute limit, but almost to a fault. You'll face plenty of long loading screens throughout your playthrough. It's not so much a problem with the game as it is the Switch itself. It shows the system's age when draw distance is low on some shadows, and textures load in late during plot-sensitive cutscenes. This is one of Nintendo's first high-profile releases using the Unreal Engine, which means that modders are currently working on fixing these issues, among other things.
Oh my god!
I'm curious to see how far they can push the resolution, because the series has benefited tremendously from the transition to HD. The Switch caps out at 1080p, and texture sizes are small. That normally wouldn't be a problem for a game where you're always pushing forward. But in Pikmin, you're either at a bird's eye view to observe progression, or taking the camera close to the ground, revealing small imperfections. Regardless, I still think this is the best the series has looked, and is enough to immerse yourself in these beautifully detailed environments. When you're not busy soaking in the surroundings, you're almost certainly fighting with the game's automated lock-on system. It's a huge step down from the manual system used in Pikmin 3. It often locks onto the wrong target, and trying to switch is almost impossible to do without some Pikmin dying. This becomes a big problem in the late game, when you're tasked with completing various challenges within a strict time limit. The challenge titled One Fell Jump in particular showcases exactly why the automated controls suck and are bad. It must have taken me over 10 tries to complete this part, and when I finally did, it wasn't because of some ingenious strategy, it was just dumb luck. I did it? Okay. The series has benefited from using motion controls in the past, but the gyro aim used here is far too unreliable to confidently use in any setting. It only activates when you hold down the throw button, and it's almost guaranteed to lose calibration, causing you to arch your Joy-Cons at weird angles, contradicting what you see on screen. For a game that constantly stresses the importance of Dandori, which is to strategically organize your tasks and work on executing them efficiently, I don't feel I have total control over my actions. It feels like sometimes in the heat of battle when I'm not fighting the controls, the Pikmin are fighting me. They have short attention spans and will almost always abandon their task and do something else, whether that something else is possible or not. It's practically Pikmin lore that the species is a little stupid, so some amount of error can be attributed to their nature, but I've experienced far too many moments that stick out as faulty AI. I've seen them actively run into harm's way, set themselves on fire, drown, use indirect routes, littered with hazards, set themselves on water, and whatever the hell this is. Your companion this time around, Ochi, helps split the workload, and what separates him from the series' previous team members is his usefulness in combat. His dash ability alone is strong enough to break through barriers and kill enemies in one hit. All of his skills are upgradable too. One of his most useful abilities is Super Buff, which allows him to single-handedly carry large items. His standard abilities are equally as helpful, especially his go here and sniff out treasure commands. The latter comes in handy when collecting those last few treasures on the surface whose locations aren't immediately apparent. However, just like the Pikmin, Ochi's AI is prone to some shittiness.
Stupid dog!
Pikmin 4 takes a lot of its DNA from the second title, as it once again prioritizes collecting treasure, which there are a wide variety of. One minute you'll be picking up a perfectly preserved dessert item that's been underground for God knows how long, and the next a Game Boy Micro. The development staff wanted to ensure each item collected throughout the campaign would hold some significance to players, whether they recognize them or not. It's possible some players are too young to know what a Game Boy Micro is. But then it becomes a brand new discovery for them, and the inverse is true for those who grew up playing one. It's that initial discovery that inspires childhood memories, where any seemingly mundane item found in the wild would feel like a treasure. It's true what they say after all, one man's trash is another's love nugget. The appeal of these games has always been the micromanaging aspect. Each Pikmin type offers a unique ability that can be useful given the right circumstances. The satisfaction comes from multitasking and making the most out of your limited in-game day. There's no feeling quite like watching all of the day's collected treasures being hauled as the sun begins to set, marking the end of another successful day. The caves from Pikmin 2 return and offer a more focused challenge, free of any time constraints, testing the player's ability to endure multi-level gauntlets. The challenges can vary from environmental puzzles to caves filled with enemies that you must carefully navigate through, minimizing any casualties. This is where most of the bosses are fought, and they can be defeated in a matter of seconds, which might feel a bit anticlimactic, but it goes both ways for players. One small mistake can lead to a large loss of Pikmin. This is when the rewind feature comes in handy. Death has zero consequences in real life, and in this game, which might seem like it cheapens the difficulty, but you can't rush back in and expect different results. Taking some time and contemplating what worked and what didn't is enough to formulate a successful strategy. And therein lies the true essence of the series. Mixing up the formula this time around are night missions, where you stay in one area and defend your base from stronger enemies, using the glow Pikmin, which can't die. These challenges really ramp up in difficulty, and if you haven't sharpened your multitasking skills in the main game, you'll have your ass handed to you here. But even in those instances where I failed, restarting was never a hassle. New to the series are Dandori battles, special challenges where you compete against one of many Leafling NPCs. The goal is to collect treasure and earn more points than your opponent. These challenges can be a lot of fun, if I was able to see the entire screen. For some reason, this mode is exclusively played in split screen, a mode that requires you to keep your eyes peeled for high value items to spawn has no business reducing your visibility to 50%. It's quite apparent this game was made with newcomers to the series in mind, as it's the easiest title to complete. The first 2 hours are littered with tutorials and dialogue boxes that go on and on and on and on. It's annoying. I want to feel like I'm exploring an alien planet and making these discoveries myself, but these constant interruptions slow down the pace and hinder the replayability. I'm all in favor of making this series as accessible as possible, but there really should have been an option to opt out from these heavy-handed tutorials. In terms of content, this is the beefiest entry and took me around 31 hours to 99% complete, but by the last half you've pretty much seen and done it all. The caves all recycle the same few visual aesthetics, and only 3 out of the 6 maps feel different enough to stand out. It doesn't help that 4 maps feel like a copy and paste job. Pikmin 3 had a similar problem, but each map went with a different season, and that was enough for them to stand on their own. According to Miyamoto, Pikmin 4 was close to completion 8 years ago, which makes you wonder what exactly happened within that time frame. The Wii U was on life support, and Pikmin 3 managed to sell only slightly better than the first 2 games combined.
Fuck.
The 4th title's development shifted focus onto Nintendo's next system, and it was probably discussed that releasing a 4th entry in a long-running series on a brand new platform would probably alienate potential newcomers to the series. When the Switch became a massive hit, it was decided to re-release the 3rd game, and it turned out to be the right decision, as it sold more than any of the previous titles. From there, it only made sense to do the same for the first 2 games, in order to pave the way for Pikmin 4. It must have had a large marketing budget, because I don't think this series has gotten this much of a push from Nintendo, and it seems to have worked. As of right now, there are no concrete sales numbers, but I think it's safe to assume Miyamoto got the large audience he's always wanted for the series. If you haven't played a single entry before, there's no better time to start than now. I would recommend for those new players to try out the 3rd game first, as it does almost everything the 4th title does, but much better, especially in the controls department. My only hope is that Nintendo gives us more customization options for Pikmin 4's controls, and adds a hard mode in a potential future update. Nintendo has always listened to its fans, so I can see these changes being implemented as soon as this video uploads. Pikmin 4 is far from a bad game, but it spread itself too thin, trying to appease longtime fans and newcomers at the cost of gameplay. The silver lining is, there are more people playing this series than ever before. Maybe we won't have to wait another 10 years for the next installment. There are rumors circulating that Nintendo's next system, due sometime next year, will be on par with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in terms of performance. If that's true, then I see no other series that can benefit more from the added power than Pikmin. Maybe we can finally get the 4K 60fps RTX Ultra Realism Mode On version I've always wanted. It should look something like this. Hey, get away from there!
紫ピクミン力持ち白ピクミン岩
Come with me to try out the new Pikmin Tropical Punch and Slush Boba from Kung Fu Tea. Guys, it looked so yummy, and it came with a special edition blue Pikmin cup. How cute! Let's give it a try. Okay, that taste is rather interesting. I wonder what it's made out of.
Bye, have a beautiful time.